I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought saying yes to a good man would fix the hole that a wrong man had left behind. I thought if I just gave it enough time, enough patience, enough quiet mornings and candlelit dinners, something inside me would finally shift. Something would click into place and I would wake up one day and feel what I was supposed to feel. That day never came. My name is Emma. I am 28 years old and I live in Lincoln Park, Chicago. And for the past year, I have been living inside a marriage that looked perfect from every angle except the one that mattered most, the inside. Let me take you back to where this actually started, because this story does not begin with Leo. It begins with Alex. Alex and I were together for 3 years. 3 years of inside jokes and road trips and the kind of comfortable love that makes you stop noticing how much you need it until it disappears overnight. He ended things on a Wednesday in November. No big fight, no dramatic moment, just a quiet conversation in a parking lot where he told me he did not see a future with me anymore. I drove home and sat in my apartment for 3 days, barely moving. I stopped eating properly. I stopped returning calls. I just sat there in the wreckage of something I had not seen coming and did not know how to rebuild. That is when Leo appeared. He was a friend of a friend. He came to a dinner party I almost did not attend, and he spent the whole evening making sure I was included in conversations, refilling my glass before it was empty, laughing at things I said like they were the most interesting observations he had ever heard. He was warm and steady and completely uncomplicated in the way that only genuinely good people can be. I was not attracted to him. I want to be honest about that. But I was so tired of hurting that being near someone kind felt like the closest thing to relief I had found in months. We started spending time together. He was patient with me in a way that Alex had never been. He never pushed, he never pressured. He just kept showing up with coffee and conversation and a consistency I had never experienced before. And somewhere in the fog of my own grief, I confused being comforted with being in love. When he asked me to marry him 6 months after we met, I said yes. Standing there in that park under the oak tree with him looking at me like I was the answer to every question he had ever asked, I said yes. And even as the word left my mouth, I knew something was not right. I told myself it was just nerves. I told myself love would come. I told myself that choosing someone kind and reliable and present was the mature thing to do. I told myself a lot of things that night that I wanted desperately to believe. We got married on a Saturday in April. It was a beautiful wedding. Everyone cried. My mother held my hand before I walked down the aisle and told me I was glowing. Leo stood at the altar looking at me like I was the most extraordinary thing he had ever seen. And I smiled at him and meant the smile in the way you mean a smile when you genuinely like someone and genuinely wish you could feel more than you do. The first few months were not terrible. We built routines together. We learned each other's preferences and habits. Leo learned that I needed silence in the mornings before I was ready to talk. I learned that he processed stress by cooking elaborate meals. We were compatible in the surface-level ways that compatibility gets measured in the early months of sharing a life with someone. But underneath all of it, in the quiet moments when I sat alone with my own thoughts, the truth was always there waiting patiently for me to stop running from it. I did not love him. Not the way you are supposed to love the person you have promised your life to. Not the deep cellular kind of love that makes someone feel like home. I cared about him. I respected him enormously. I wished him every good thing in the world. But when he reached for my hand across the dinner table, I had to remind myself to hold it back. When he kissed me goodnight, I counted the seconds. When he told me I was his sunshine, I smiled and felt nothing, and then hated myself for feeling nothing, and then smiled again to cover the hating. Every Friday, he brought me flowers. Every single Friday, without exception, for an entire year. Daisies, mostly, because I had mentioned once in passing that I like daisies better than roses. He remembered that. He remembered everything. He put little notes in my lunch bag on the mornings I went into the bookstore. Just small things. A joke he thought I would like. A reminder that he was proud of me. A tiny drawing of a sun with my name written inside it. Women who found out about the notes would look at me with a kind of longing and say, "Leo sounds like a dream. You are so lucky, Emma." And I would smile and agree and carry the weight of knowing that luck was not the word for what I felt. One night we were sitting on the balcony in late summer. The kind of evening that Chicago sometimes offers, where the air is finally soft and the stars are actually visible through the city glow. Leo looked over at me and said something that I have not been able to forget since. He said, "Emma, I know you don't love me yet, but I believe you will. I am not going anywhere. My love is strong enough for both of us until yours catches up." I sat there next to this man who loved me more completely than anyone ever had, and I felt the particular specific loneliness of being truly known by someone you cannot love back. It is a different kind of alone, quieter and heavier than regular loneliness, the kind that sits right in the middle of a full life and cannot be moved. I tried everything I could think of to change what I felt. I read books about love and marriage and how relationships deepen over time. I talked to my mother, who told me that love was a choice you made every day and not just a feeling that either existed or did not. I went through stretches of weeks where I focused entirely on Leo's goodness and tried to let gratitude turn into something warmer. I cooked his favorite meals. I surprised him with small things I knew he would appreciate. I tried to manufacture what was not there through sheer effort and intention. But you cannot think your way into love. You cannot discipline yourself into feeling something your heart has simply never produced. One Sunday morning over breakfast, he asked me if I had thought about having a baby. He said it gently, almost apologetically, like he knew it was a large question but could not hold it in any longer. He said he thought it might bring us closer. He said he thought he was ready. I went completely still. A child. The idea of bringing a child into the center of something I already knew was built on the wrong foundation stopped every other thought I was having. I looked down at my coffee and said I was not ready yet. He nodded and did not push me. That restraint of his, that perpetual quiet patience, was somehow the hardest thing of all to be on the receiving end of. It would have been easier in some strange way if he had pushed, but he never pushed. He just waited. He just kept loving me from a careful and respectful distance, hoping eventually I would meet him there. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. I wrote, "I am drowning and he keeps throwing me a rope I cannot make myself grab. Not because the rope is not strong enough, because I am not in the water he thinks I am in." I started talking more honestly with my best friend Na around this time. She lived across the city and we met at a cafe by the lake one gray Tuesday morning. She looked at me across the table and said, before I had spoken a single word, that I looked like someone who had not slept properly in months. I told her everything, all of it, the whole truth without softening any of it to protect anyone, including myself. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Emma, you can love someone and still know they are not right for you. Those two things can exist at the same time. And staying in something that is not true is not kindness. It is just delayed pain with interest." Her words followed me home and sat in the corner of every room I walked into for the next several weeks. Leo planned a weekend trip to Lake Geneva. He booked a small hotel right on the water, packed the car carefully, and drove us there on a Friday afternoon with a playlist he had made specifically for the trip. The lake was still and blue when we arrived. The hotel room had a balcony that looked directly out over the water. It was the kind of weekend that should have been romantic and restorative and connecting. We walked along the shore and he pointed out birds and talked about things he wanted to do someday and laughed easily the way he always did. And I walked beside him feeling like a ghost, present in body but somewhere else entirely in every way that counted. On the second night, he gave me a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace with a tiny gold heart. He held it up and said, "My heart is yours, Emma." I looked at that necklace and felt tears come into my eyes, and he mistook them for the right kind of tears. He fastened it around my neck and kissed my cheek, and I sat there wearing his heart around my throat, knowing I had no right to it. That night after he fell asleep, I sat on the floor in the dark beside the bed and stayed there for a long time, not crying, just sitting, thinking about the distance between who I was and who I needed to become, thinking about the particular cruelty of allowing someone to keep loving you when you know you cannot love them back, thinking about what it would cost to finally be honest and what it would cost to keep not being honest, and slowly understanding that the two costs were not equal and had never been equal, and I had simply been choosing the one that felt smaller in the moment, even though it was not smaller at all. When we got back to Chicago, I started writing letters to myself, private letters that I kept in a notebook under my side of the bed. They helped me hear my own thoughts without the noise of guilt distorting everything. One letter said, "You are not a villain. You made a decision from pain and you believed it at the time, and that matters. But believing something sincerely does not make it right for everyone involved." Another letter said, "Leo is not your home. You cannot build a home out of someone else's love for you, no matter how real and consistent that love is. A home has to go both directions." The evening I finally told him the truth was unremarkable in its details. A Tuesday night, tea on the kitchen table, the sound of traffic outside. I asked him to sit down and I watched his face change slightly as he registered the seriousness in my voice. I said, "Leo, I need to tell you something that I should have said a long time ago, and I am sorry that I did not have the courage to say it sooner. I don't love you. I have cared about you, and I have tried, and I have wanted to feel differently than I feel, but my heart has not changed. I married you because I was hurting, and I thought that choosing someone good would eventually become the same thing as being in love with someone. It did not, and you deserve to know the truth. He did not shout. He did not stand up or leave the room or say anything cruel. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, and his eyes filled slowly, and he said, "I knew Emma. I think I have known for a while. I just kept hoping I was wrong." Then he said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. He said, "I love you, and I am not going to stop loving you because of this conversation. But I cannot keep being the only person in this marriage who is fully here. If your heart is somewhere else, I want you to go find it." We sat in silence for a long time after that. A real silence. Not the uncomfortable kind that fills a room when people are holding back what they want to say. The honest kind that comes after everything has been said. I moved out 2 weeks later. Na came with her car. Leo held the front door of the building open for me when I carried my last bag out. He said, "Take care of yourself, Emma." I said thank you for everything and meant it down to my bone. Then I got into Na's car and we drove away, and I looked at the road ahead instead of the building getting smaller in the mirror behind me. I cried that night in Na's spare room. Not because I had made the wrong choice, because doing the right thing is still painful when it costs someone who did not deserve to be hurt. I lay in the dark in that small room, and for the first time in almost a year, I was not pretending to be somewhere I was not. I was just exactly where I was, sad and scared and tired, and somewhere underneath all of it, for the first time in a very long time, honest. The months that followed were slow and quiet and mine. I found a small studio apartment near work, painted the walls yellow, put flowers in the window, made my own coffee in the mornings, and sat watching the street come alive. I joined a writing class at the community center and slowly found my way back to my own voice, the one I had been muffling for the better part of 2 years. Leo sent me a message a few months later. He said he hoped I was doing well. He said he had joined a cooking class. He said no pressure to reply, he just wanted me to know he was okay. I wrote back. I said I was glad. I said I was in a writing class. I wished him peace and happiness and meant every word. I still think about him sometime. I hope he finds someone whose heart moves toward his without effort or convincing. He deserves that completely. And I am still learning what it means to be honest, before the cost of honesty becomes someone else's pain. If you are somewhere in the middle of a story like mine right now, I want to say just one thing to you. Your heart already knows the truth. The only question is how long you are willing to wait before you trust it.